Hello everybody, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to today's Critical Thought. We're going to be talking the topic of free-to-play versus pay-to-win. But first, thank you to 647 subscribers here on YouTube. Thanks so much for enjoying the content, everybody. Pay-to-win has really become almost like a mark that when it gets sprayed on a game, it basically means the end of that game's success. And it's become a very popular topic among free-to-play games to debate whether or not a game is pay-to-win or not. In a post I made about 2 years ago has become commonly cited among game forums and game sites whenever there's discussions of pay-to-win. And it is a very tricky topic. As you know, free-to-play games have to balance both the player engagement with actually making money. If you can't do both, your game is basically dead. And many free-to-play games have lived or died based on how they balance those two extremes. In my post, I talked about a definition I have for pay-to-win, and that is if there is any content that positively impacts the game experience, but can only be accessed through premium currency. For those of you who don't play free-to-play games, premium currency refers to the resource that you must spend real cash to get. Sometimes the games may have this resource as a reward or something that can be earned randomly or in small amounts. But commonly speaking, this is a resource you have to spend money. And they all have crazy, currency rates for this. You know, it could be $1 gets you 50 gems, or $3 gets you 100 rubies or stars, or whatever you want to use. And that worked back of those years ago, but it seems like it's becoming even more muddier to decide whether or not a game is pay to win. I recently spoke to a contact, and while this will be on the Perceptive podcast soon, I want to talk about it here. And we kind of talked about this kind of sliding scale when it comes to pay to win. If on one end of the scale we have retail games, any game you spend hard-earned money on, and on the other end of the scale, we have the pure, monetized, heavy, free-to-play games. We're talking the ones that you're going to be spending money for any kind of progress. And what we talked about was how for each kind of element that designers add, it can sort of tilt their game further and further towards the pay-to-win side. Now, the easiest way to decide if a game is pay-to-win or not goes back to my original definition. Are there elements that positively change the game that can only be acquired through real money? And there are many examples of this. For instance, in the game Marvel Puzzle Quest, which I got into for a brief summer, there was the ability to buy essentially a shield for its tournament play. The shield protects you from losing points, and it's basically a way of locking your points so that when the tournament ends, you can see what your reward is. And how it works is, as you get to certain point thresholds, you unlock more and more stuff. And like the top stuff, like the top 100 players in the tournament, usually get some kind of rare or hard to get item. So the shield, which can only be acquired through real money, would be an example of pay to win. In any competitive game, if there is content that is legitimately better than everything else, that would also be an example of pay to win. Let's say, for instance, there is a first-person shooter, and all the free items, their damage output caps at 70. And then all the premium guns begin at 85 and go up from there. Now, you can argue that skill is still a factor, and we'll be coming back to that with Team Fortress in a minute, but you have a case where the haves have a legitimate advantage over the have-nots. And with those higher damage outputs, you could even say that paying money supersedes the need for skill. And that is definitely a case of pay to win. Now, but when things get very muddy in terms of defining pay to win is when you have time savers. This is when there's content that is explicitly designed to speed things up, or purchases. So let's say in order to get this item, it will take 5 hours of play. Or you spend $1 now and you get it right away. We also see this with like resources. Like your resources will come back in 30 minutes, or spend 20 cents and we'll get it now. These things technically aren't unique content. You're simply saving time. So on one hand, it can't technically be considered pay to win. But if it becomes such a hassle to play the game, then that will definitely lean it towards the pay to win side. For instance, if it says that it will take me 100 hours to get the stuff if I play normally, or $5 to get it now, that I think would be considered more on the pay to win scale. Again, it's not just on and off, black and white, it's more of this sliding scale. Now, an example of a game that has really handled this right would be Team Fortress 2. Now, as you know, Team Fortress didn't start with any monetization, items, or anything like that. It was simply a retail game. When the game went free to play, they introduced the Manconomy update, not easy to say when you're talking fast, that added in the item store, items, and the ability to buy them as well as unlock them. Now, that right there is the important part, the ability to unlock them. Valve gave a speech a few years ago when they were talking about the economy system of the game. And what they said is players will value two resources differently. You have time and you have money. Someone who values time more wants it now. They don't want to wait 100 hours. They don't want to wait 50 minutes to do something. If they're playing it, they want it now because their time is limited. Let's say they only play this 5 minutes a day, or while the kids are sleeping or whatever. So spending 50 cents, 75 cents, $1, it doesn't matter to them. People who value money, however, they want to get this stuff, but they need money for other things. Food, family, their life, stuff like that. But they have plenty of time. And they're more willing to sit through these things if it means saving money. Not to mention, when you're buying games on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of hard to rationalize spending 70, 80 plus on one game. So these are the players who will value their money more than time. Now, what Valve did with Team Fortress, and this is the brilliant part that needs to be copied, is that they have compensated for both players. Items are unlocked simply through playing the game. I only need to spend 1 penny for that. There's a limit per week, obviously, although for those of you who are playing Team Fortress, has that changed? Because it has been a few years since I last loaded it up. But you can play the game, you get these items. You're not buying the items that you want, you're simply getting them as random gifts. We see the same thing with Overwatch. The paying content, on the other hand, allows you to buy what you want. Let's say I want this specific soldier hat, but I don't want to spend hours playing the game hoping it will show up. And remember, Team Fortress has a ton of items now, so the chance of you getting exactly what you want is very minimal. So let's say I really want this item. It's $2.50 or $3 in the Manco store, or if I buy it off of the marketplace. Well, if I really want it enough and I don't want to spend hours grinding, let me spend the $3. 1, 2, 3, it's done. And the beauty of this is that both time and money players are being equally respected. And again, with Team Fortress as like the third ribbon on the game, is that you don't need these items to play. Again, the hats, medals, effects, taunts, they're superfluous to the actual game. Having a fancy hat doesn't make me a better sniper. Having a better fez on my spy isn't going to make it easier for me to sneak up on people. What the items do are they provide side grades. And side grade is a term that I've used a lot, and it's a very important one for any kind of competitive or free-to-play experience. Side grades simply change how the player plays something, but is not always 100% better. Let's say, like with Team Fortress 2 again, the soldier gets a rocket launcher that shoots faster, but no more random crits. Or the sniper gets a sniper rifle that does instant headshot damage, but does 0 damage to the body. These are items that change your play style and will push you towards one of any kind of ways, but it's not a pure upgrade. A pure upgrade would be, let's say, a heavy minigun that has 500 more ammo, does 10 more points of damage, and reloads instantly. That would be a pure upgrade, and those kinds of things would break a game. But when you have a game that doesn't reward or doesn't punish either time or money, it becomes a lot more fair. Now, going back to that sliding scope of what is and what isn't pay to win, I have another example for you. In the game World of Tanks, and before I say this, just a quick caveat, I play this before their big free-to-play transition or update. A few years ago, they did a massive update on the game to restructure the free-to-play elements, change how things are working, stuff like that. And I think it was in response to some of my complaints with the game from prior. In the original version of World Tanks, you had premium currency that could not only buy better tanks, but it also provided numerous quality of life additions, including the ability to play with friends, cut down on the repair costs that you have after each map, increase the amount of the regular currency that you get, and buy special items and perks that legitimately will help you while you play. And now this will be an example that a free-to-play player can play this game, and a good one can kick ass. But there were so many gratuities or bonuses for spending money that it really did feel like pay to win. It goes back to a few years before that. There was a Penny Arcade comic for Hellscape London, I think, which was going to be a retail ARPG with monetized elements. And they listed the elite players' advantages. Now, of course, Penny Arcade made fun of it, but it had so many quality of life bonuses and additions that it almost felt like a completely different game. Now, in some cases, again, it really skirts that line between free-to-play or pay-to-win. For instance, in DC Universe Online, if you're not a premium subscriber, you have limits on how much of the game's currency you can hold, or the extensions of things that you can do. And again, it really skirts that line. Are quality of life additions pay-to-win elements? I don't know the exact answer. Again, I would say if it becomes such a chore to play your game without spending money, then it would be considered pay to win, even if you don't have any premium content. If it just feels like I either spend money or I'm playing this in a very weakened state for 500 hours, I would say that's pay to win. And one more example for you. The short-lived game Age of Empires Online, which combined almost like a Farmville city builder, real-time strategy game, mini-games, and RPGs into one unique thing, had a very, very annoying monetization system. How it worked was you could play the game for free, but any items, and let me explain this quickly, you can equip every unit or building on your side with items that will enhance it, either doing more damage, speed up research, improve health. And you could only equip the higher tier items if you bought a premium civilization, which was $20 a pop. And they had, I think, 4 civilizations, I think 4 or 5 by the time the game was over. Now, of course, you could earn enough in-game currency, but again, we're talking a huge amount of hours to get this. And while you're not buying it, your units are always going to be weaker than everyone else, which will make missions harder, which makes PvP harder, which makes it harder to progress. And this would definitely be an example of pay to win, because again, there's such a difference between the normal play and the premium play. And with my little example here, Evolve has recently switched to a free-to-play model. I haven't had a chance to dive into it yet, but what they did was completely gut and restructure the game to make it free to play. That includes adding, random upgrades, monetization, DLC, cosmetics, etc. And I'm curious to see how it's going to affect it, because when a free-to-play is done right, it can make a game work even better. Lord of the Rings Online was literally saved because of them switching to a free-to-play system. And we could say the same for Star Trek Online, and I think Dungeons & Dragons Online is still going on right now. But it's a very sticky issue, and again, it's one thing that designers have to be really careful of. You need to compensate both the players who value time and the ones who value money. If you only do one or the other, then your game's going to be basically off-tilted, and it's not going to work as well as it should. And while not every game can be Team Fortress 2, you still should take lessons from it. And I know we're getting a little bit late, but one quick example, because I know someone will bring it up. There's, of course, League of Legends. For even though you have to buy champions, which would be considered premium content, you can still play the game for free with the rotating champions, and you earn regular currency enough to buy them. And that's definitely a big point. If you can earn premium content through in-game, as long as there's multiple avenues towards this stuff, it does soften the blow in a sense. But we are getting late for this critical thought, and I could spend 20-30 more minutes talking about it. So we will wrap it up here. If you have any comments about free-to-play versus pay-to-win, be sure to check it out below. And if you haven't, be sure to check out my post, which will be linked all the way up there, with the original thoughts and definition of pay-to-win. So, once again, this has been today's Critical Thought. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow with our next one. Take care. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, of course, share with your friends. It always helps out. Check out game-wisdom.com, where I examine the art and science of games. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter under GW Bycer for the latest updates of new content. And be sure to check out our Patreon campaign. You can find us on Patreon under Game Wisdom if you would like to donate and help contribute to keeping Game Wisdom going. Your donations can not only give us the monthly funding we need to keep supporting ourselves, but if we can hit some goals, it will mean more great content for you, and there are some nifty little rewards there as well. Thanks again for watching this video, and be sure to tune into the next one real soon.